10,000 a week is not possible for you. Why I created the 4x4 rule is that it's effectively 50% efficiency. You are only being efficient half the time, and half is enough to get to $10,000 a week. Well, good morning. My name is Chris Guyman. I'm the Time Freedom Lawyer. And today we are going to talk about the 4x4 rule. So this is something I coined and came up with a little while ago. And it's kind of the foundation of what it takes to hit that $10,000 a week threshold. So I want to be clear here. This is not the end goal. This is the tool that helps you build the principles and the systems in place so that you can do other things. And so, but this is not necessarily what you'll be doing at those next steps. There's a big difference between what it takes to get to that $500,000 a year mark and what it takes to get to 1, 2, 3, 5 million and up. Once you get to the 5, 10, $50 million a year, I will refer you to someone else that can help you do that. That's not my strong suit. My secret sauce, my focus is 100% on helping people break that $10,000 a week, $500K a year mark, and setting themselves up with a foundation so that they can scale. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to hit before I jump into the 4x4 rule. I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page as to what it's going to take to get there and that it's possible. Okay. And even if you're already at the $10,000 a week threshold or up, there's a lot of principles that we're going to be teaching today to help you grow your business and build that firm foundation. So that's the big thing that I like to focus on, is building the foundation. Because if you want to be a multi-million-dollar firm, you've got to have all of the elements in place. Building a law firm, Bill and Andy from the SMB team, whether you love them or not, is irrelevant. They have an ad right now and it says, building a law firm is like building a table, and you have to have all 4 legs in order for it to stand. And then they talk about the 4 principles that they sell in their program, right? Well, that's true, right? You do need a firm foundation. You need all of the different aspects of your business in order to scale. What I notice when I'm working with people who are at the 500,000 threshold and they're not able to make it to $1 million or their next goal, it's almost always because they are really, really good at something above average, significantly above average at a specific thing. And that thing has carried them to success, but the rest of their business is lacking. And so they get to the point where they're not able to get past that one skill set is not enough to carry the rest of the team. You think of like Kobe Bryant on some of those bad teams that he was on as later on in his career post Shaq, right? He was really, really good and they always made it to the playoffs because he's awesome, but his team kept him back from winning those championships until he was able to get a good team around him, and then he won additional championships, right? One more than Shaq, as he would like to say. As a Jazz fan, I hate to use Kobe Bryant as a reference, but got to do what you got to do. So that's what we're doing here today, okay? That we're building a firm foundation. The 4x4 rule is going to do that. But before I go into that rule, I want to break 2 misbeliefs. And the first is that 10,000 a week is not possible for you. Why I created the 4x4 rule is that it's effectively 50% efficiency. You are only being efficient half the time, and half is enough to get to $10,000 a week. So when I do this presentation with like slides and all that kind of stuff, right? I've got a slide that shows what it takes to get to that 10,000 a week. On that, it says, okay, if you're working 4 hours a day and you work 5 days a week, that's 20 hours, right? Simple math. I know lawyers don't love math, but 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's 20 hours. If you were able to bill at $400 an hour, that would be $8,000 a week. The average attorney in the state or in the country bills $395 an hour. So that's why I came up with that number. But if you had one additional person on your team also billing 20 hours a week at $200 an hour, half of your rate, that would be an additional $4,000 per week. That total weekly revenue would then be $12,000. So, and this is a good question. Amy asked, would you please define a $10,000 week? Absolutely. $10,000, we're talking gross revenue here. I figure, again, kind of the foundation of a good business is if you're making about $10,000 a week, you're working about half of your day on the business as the CEO, and then you're working half the day in the business as the lawyer. If you have one person on your team that's also doing the same thing, those numbers, like I said, that should come out to about 10 to 12 grand a week. If you don't bill quite 400 an hour, there's a buffer there. That's gross revenue. At that stage, and when you're using the 4x4 rule, like I'm going to show you in a little bit, that should produce about a 50% profit margin, depending on how much you pay your team and stuff. There's a lot of variables there. But assuming that's the case, you would be able to have about a 50% profit margin. That's about 200 to 250,000 a year in profit to the person. That's kind of my foundational goal. Obviously, when we jump into your business, we can talk about the specifics there, but that's what we're looking for. So really good question. So first, that's why I want you to do the math for you too, because I can tell all these stories all day, but until you have done the math and you know if it's going to work for you or not, and if you believe that this is possible for you, none of the other stuff matters. So if you only get one thing out of this video today, I want you to know and believe that making $10,000 a week gross revenue is possible for you. So do that math. Again, if it's 20 hours a week at 400 an hour, that's 8,000 a week that you would be billing. And if someone on your team was billing an additional 20 hours a week, and they're billing at half your hourly rate, which is what I would suggest you do your paralegals at. You'll actually find your clients are happier if you bill them at half your hourly rate than if you bill them even less than that. So that would be another 4,000 a week. That's a total weekly revenue of gross revenue of 12,000 a week. So there's some buffer there, right? I've done that on purpose. I always like to do these things with extra buffers because I know life happens, right? And that way, if something comes up and you're not making the money, you'll at least have the buffer to hit the $10,000 a week goal. So that's step one. Do the math, believe that it works. The other thing that I want to point out is that to hit this number, you don't have to be the best advertiser in the world. What I often hear as an objection for smaller firms is that I can't beat so-and-so. And so right now, I want you to think in your mind, whatever practice area you're in, who's the biggest person in your area? Maybe it's you. If it is, I want you to say that you are the biggest in your area. That would be awesome. But most likely, if you're here trying to get to 10,000 a week, you're not the biggest in your area, right? There is probably someone else in your area that's bigger. And I often hear this, well, I'm never going to be able to make 10,000 a week or 15,000 a week or whatever number you pick because I'm not as big as so-and-so. I can't compete with them on ad spend. I can't ... because of someone else. I'm sure you've heard this. I'm sure you've said it yourself at times. The cool thing about the law is that the biggest fish can't take all the work. And this was a rude awakening I had myself recently as I've had to expand geographical areas. And what's happened is I am the biggest fish in my small pond. I live in a small area, and I do family law. Family law is not necessarily the most competitive of marketing practices, right? A lot of law firms do family law, but I'm actually the only person in this area that specializes and focuses on family law. Definitely the only one who actively advertises for it. So about 80% of the cases in our area, someone contacts us. They don't all hire us, obviously, but someone contacts us. So we've dominated this market share. Well, here's the cool thing, right? Even with me, let's say you decide you want to move to Northern Utah, right here in Little Cache Valley, and you decide you want to open up a family law practice. And I am now your direct competitor. And I dominate this market with a large market share. Well, guess what? No matter how good I get, I can only take 50% of the work, right? There's always two sides to a case. And so you don't have to compete with me. You have to compete with everybody else. And the cool thing is most lawyers suck at marketing. Okay. There's always going to be one or two big fish in your area. That's a given, right? But the majority of attorneys, those 60-year-old old white guys that have been taught all their life that good lawyers don't need to market or advertise, that's who you're competing against. And you can 100% beat them. Okay. So don't let this be an issue. Don't let the fact that you have someone that's a big fish in your area dominating the market get you down, because there's always the other side of the case. Even if I had a perfect 100% rate, right, where every single case someone hired me, there would still be 50% of the cases that other people could pick up, right? And if you look at our current market here in town, We take about 30% of the cases. The big law firms, there's three big for our area law firms, take up about 20 to 30% of the cases, about the same amount that we do. And then all of the other attorneys fight for 40%. But that 40% is more than enough to support a $10,000 a week firm. So if you want to get to 1, 2, 5 million, then you're absolutely going to have to get good at marketing and advertising, right? You're going to have to run ad spends. You're going to have to do those things to beat the big fish, right? But to get to 10,000 a week, to build the foundation, you don't need those things. Okay. So those are the two biggest misconceptions that I wanted to overcome. If there is another objection that you're like, I cannot get to $10,000 a week, I want you to put it in the chat and let me know what that would be. Because I'd be happy to talk about those things as well. Okay. So let's jump into the 4x4 rule. What is the 4x4 rule? Simply put, the 4x4 rule, and I took some notes here so I wouldn't mess this up. What this says is that half of your day, you need to work on the business. You need to do activities like you would the CEO, the owner, and the manager of this company. You need to do things to attract clients, and you need to be improving the business. I have a system we call review, revise, repeat, where we review what we're doing, we revise the things that work, and we repeat the things that don't work, right? That's what you're doing for half of your day. The other half of the day, you are going to work in the business as the attorney. And the key here is during these 4 hours, these income producing hours, the only thing that you are allowed to do is work on cases that have money in trust or have prepaid for the service, or that you are certain you're going to get paid, right? Now, depending on your practice area, like personal injury, you don't have money in trust, but you can do a good analysis to make sure you're going to get paid for cases and move cases forward, right? What you're doing when you're being the attorney is you are solving your client's problems and you are getting paid to do so. And if you are not 100% sure that you are solving someone's problems, then stop doing that thing and only do things that you know are going to solve their problems so that you can feel confident to get paid. This rule I stumbled on, I'm going to be totally honest. When I first started coaching, I used to tell people that they needed to work for 4 hours a week, not a day, a week on their business. I was like, okay, these are the things you're going to do each week to work on your business. And the truth is, I could never get people to do it. Never. And we're busy, right? We're always busy. We're all busy. And so with that, I needed to figure out what to do. And I stumbled upon a report from Clio. This report from Clio said that the average attorney, this was about 5 years ago, the average attorney at that time, for every 8 hours they worked, they got paid for 1.9 hours. Now, when you hear that number, I want you to tell me, do you think that that's high or low? Do you think that the average attorney for every 8 hours they work, do you think they get paid more than 1.9 hours or less? Because when I first heard that, I was like, there's no way. There's no way that that's true. And then I again started doing the math. I took how much money I made that month and I divided it by the number of like my hourly rate, figured out how many hours I collected. And then I divided that by the number of days I worked. And at that point I was at like 1.5. That was early on in my career, right? I was like, oh crap. Like, I think I'm pretty good at this thing and I'm not even average. So you can do the same thing for you. This isn't how many hours you bill. And what happens here is we think we're being productive, right? We're on a consultation that we don't get paid for. We're doing marketing, right? We're creating cool Facebook posts for our page. We're doing things like that, right? And we think that we're being productive. And maybe we are, but we're not getting paid for it, right? Every time you do a Facebook Live, I am not getting paid for this, right? None of you have paid for this. This is a non-income producing activity. We do a lot of these things to run a business. The problem that we often run into is that we do too many of these things and we don't do enough income producing activities. And that's why we're busy. So when I heard that, I then started coaching people and said, well, I heard that initially and I fixed my own practice. And a couple of years later, when I was coaching, that's when I finally came in and said, hey, you know what? I can double people's money. In fact, some of my early ads, if you've been around for 4 or 5 years, you've probably seen some of those ads or posts that I had said that I could double your money in 30 days. And it was kind of gimmicky. I have learned not to be gimmicky, but I knew it worked because I knew that if you worked for if I could get you to bill for 4 hours a day on only cases that are prepaid for services, 4 was twice as much as 1.9, and you would double your revenue. And a lot of people who joined my program back then would double their revenue in about 30 to 60 days, solely because the math worked. So that was the foundation, right? So I started that. I had some fun gimmicks. I was telling people to try to work on their business and they wouldn't do it. Then I would have them do this 4x4 rule and they would double their revenue. They would think it was cool. They would think it was awesome. But then it finally clicked for me. And this is where kind of my entire coaching program changed, my entire philosophy changed, my own business grew when I finally realized this is I was like, okay, we're already doing more than 4 hours a week working on our business. So I was trying to get people to do 4 hours a week and it was impossible. But then I was like, hold on, you're already not getting paid for a ton of work. So all we have to do is actually prioritize what you do during those 4 hours. And so now instead of trying to add 4 hours to people's week, that no attorney has an additional 4 hours. If you think you have 4 extra hours a week that you want to just do extra things, let me know in the chat. I would love to hear what extra things you want to do each week with the extra 4 hours you have. But I am guessing that you don't have an extra 4 hours every week to just do extra fun things. So if you do, great, let me know. I want to hear it. But I'm guessing you don't. So but once I realized that, hey, you're already working 20 hours a week and not getting paid for it, let's just prioritize what you do during those 20 hours. Now it became, instead of trying to get people to do 4 hours a week, now I had 20 at my disposal. And we just prioritized what to do. And we stopped doing the things that were at the bottom of the priority list. That's what changed for me. That's what really grew my business. I actually doubled my revenue that year when I learned this. And most of my coaching clients have been able to do the same. Here's the secret, okay? If you don't have enough work to bill for 4 hours a day, then the only thing you should be doing for your 4 hours a day working on the business is attracting more clients. I'm going to say that again because this is that important. If you set up your day so that for 4 hours a day, you are working in the business as an attorney, and your team is too if you have a team. And during that time, you run out of work. So you work for 2 hours, you finish up the case, and you're like, I got no more other cases to work on. Then the only thing you're allowed to do when you're working on your business is attracting more clients. I am not saying this forever, right? I'm just talking about the foundation here. We got to build the foundation first. Now, I don't bill 4 hours a day anymore, right? I have a team that bills. So this is not your eternal thing. And I also don't spend 4 hours a day trying to attract clients because I've already built the foundation. But while you're building your foundation, if you do not have enough work to bill for 4 hours a day, then the activities that you need to be doing is attracting clients. You don't need to build another system. You don't need to work on your intake system. You don't need to build a new script. Those are all distractions that are preventing you from growing your business. You need to share your offer. Okay. Offer is just a simple marketing term that we like to use that talks about who's your ideal client, what problem do they have, and how do you solve it? And you need to be sharing that with a lot of people. The truth is, you can't know who your ideal client is until you have a client. You can think you know, you can hypothesize who you want it to be, but until you have a client and you work with them and you decide, I like working with this person or I don't like working with this person, you don't know who your ideal client is. So you've got to go get clients. You also can, again, hypothesize what their problems are, but until you talk to them, you actually don't know what their problems are. And so you've got to be talking to your potential ideal clients to learn about them, right? So that's what you need to be doing during this time. You need to be going to networking events. You can do webinars, you can do whatever, right? You can do Facebook Lives. You can, if you like social media and doing stuff on social media, do it there. If you like creating videos, do it there. If you hate video, hate seeing yourself on camera, write stuff. If you hate writing, go to a BNI networking group and talk to people. What you do is actually not that important at this stage. It's just the fact that you're doing it, that you have the ability to tell someone your offer and they have the ability to give you feedback. If you can do that, I guarantee you can hit $10,000 a week. Now, sharing your offer one-to-one, is that going to get you to 5 million a year? No, it's not. But is it going to get you to 10,000 a week? Absolutely. Now, here's the cool part. If you talk to a lot of people and you get to understand them better and you understand their problem, you understand who you want to start working with, who truly is your ideal client that you enjoy having in your office and you enjoy solving their problems, and you truly understand their problems and you've learned how to communicate with these people and you create a solution that is exactly what they need, that is valuable to them, right? You've identified what this problem is costing them, what their pain is, whatever that value is, and you've come in with a solution that's cheaper than that. And you've learned how to communicate that to your ideal client. You take that knowledge and stick that in an ad, and you're going to make a ton of money. So that's what I ended up doing with my practice. I spent a lot of years refining my offer, truly trying to find the fastest, best, and most affordable way to solve my ideal clients' problems. Is it everybody who's getting divorces problem? No, it's my ideal clients' problems. Then I got good at sharing that with people and I dominated my local market by doing that. No one else is doing this, okay? Except for the one or two big fish in your area, no one else in your area is doing anything remotely close to this. So I did that first. I got good at it. Once I knew my offer was good, then I went and dumped it into an ad. I had a marketing agency who honestly didn't even do that good of a job. I'm gonna be totally honest. But they took my offer and they put it in front of other eyeballs, geographically expanded for me. And our business just exploded. Because guess what? My ideal client knew I was talking to them. I just needed to put it in front of more eyes. I couldn't do it one-to-one anymore. I just needed to scale it. But it all came back to this. I can straight up say that the whole reason I am at where I am today is because I learned to get paid for the work that I was doing and do a reasonable amount of solving clients' problems and getting paid for that. And then spending the rest of my time truly trying to understand my ideal client and the problem they have and how we can solve it. Then we as a company, we obviously started creating and making systems and all that kind of stuff. All the stuff you hear about systems, and when I got Traction here and all these other marketing and business books on how to improve the efficiency of your business, that's all important once you have clients to serve, right? You can have the greatest system in the world. If you don't have a client to serve, it doesn't matter. So focus on these things first. That's the biggest takeaway that I wanted to give you guys today, was to really just truly get you to believe that this is possible for you and that you have a route on how to do this. Now, it's not always easy to do this, right? I mean, who here actively wants to talk to 20 plus people a day about their offer? It's tough, right? Do you even know how to create an offer, right? That's tough too. There's a lot of elements here. I'm not saying that you can just do this and like today that you'll magically, after watching this Facebook Live for 25 minutes, that you're going to have everything you need. But what I can tell you is it's possible. Now you just have to decide how you're going to go about doing that. Personally, I am stubborn, really stubborn. So I started my own firm right out of school. Was convinced I could make way more money starting my own firm than if I worked for someone else. I went on to gross $78,000 that first year, and I kept $14,000 of it. And I only share that story with you to let you know that I'm not special. Like, there are some people out there that you see them and you're like, that person's just smarter than me, right? Marty Moore, he was my mentor when I first started working with me. When I met him, I was like, he's just smarter than me. Like, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? I am not that person, okay? No one here should be like, that goofy redhead is smarter than me. I can't possibly do what he did, because I guarantee you guys are just as capable of me on any of the things that I've done. So after that first year, that's when I was like, man, I got to figure this out, right? I've been taught a lot of things. Obviously, it's not working. And I either need to go get a job or I need to figure this thing out. So I started studying business from non-attorneys. One of the first books I read was that E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber. And I kind of just started studying business from business people. And each year, my business doubled in size. About 5 years later was my first $500,000 year. I finally built this foundation that we talk about. I now finally have the cash flow and the time that I need to do what I love. What's next for me? And that's actually when I started coaching people to get to the same stage. The cool thing is I quickly thereafter, I met Sierra. She was one of my first coaching clients ever. Sierra and Spencer were my first two coaching clients. They hired me the same week. So Sierra also started her own firm right out of school. And when she did that, she hired me on Monday and she became an attorney on Wednesday. And we then worked through building her firm. And her first year, she did $500,000 her first year. And I was like, dang, because she hired someone to help her. She got a mentor. She cut 5 years off the learning curve. And I did the math then. I was like, man, if I had had that same opportunity, obviously there was no one like me when I first started to work with, but if I had had that same opportunity when I started, in my first 5 years, I would have made $1.5 million more than I did. I was like, dang, that sucks, right? That was a $1.5 million learning curve that it cost me. And I can tell you all, she paid way less than that to work with me. In fact, I think initially it was just $5,000 is all I paid, all I charged her. So for $5,000, she was able to save 5 years and 1.5 million in learning curve. The choice is yours as well, right? I straight up again, I admit, I did this without hiring a coach. So you 100% can do the same thing. The question is what is that going to cost you? And whether it's me or someone else or a mentor in your town, like I'm less worried about who you hire or even if you pay for them. What I'm worried about is that don't do this alone. Okay. My biggest regret at the beginning of my career, looking back, is that I didn't ask for help sooner. Now, when I started my coaching program, I did hire a coach. At that point, I had money, right? I was like, oh, sweet. I'm going to speed this up and I'm going to hire someone to help me. And that first year, I had over $100,000 in profit from my coaching business. So I significantly grew that faster than I ever did my law firm. And so still had a lot to learn. One of the fun things is that you're going to learn as you start working with people and as you start rubbing shoulders with other people like you and start sharing like in masterminds and groups is as you teach, you learn. And so as I started teaching this, my own law firm ended up exploding. And there was multiple times at the beginning of my coaching career, I actually had to pause taking on new clients because my law firm had grown so much, I needed to help them. One of the elements we now have in our coaching program is that same thing where we actually do group question and answers where everybody from every stage of business gets together and they help each other. The reason we do that is I know that as one of my clients, he's making about $5 million a year. And he asked a question, and one of my clients who makes $10,000 a month, she answered it. And I kind of, at first I was like, oh no, like there's a big discrepancy here, right? And the answer she gave was exactly what he needed. In fact, I know he's made a significant amount of money off of that one conversation. And it was so cool to see how you expect the people making $5 million a year to be able to help the people making $10,000 a month. But I didn't expect the people who were making $10,000 a month to be able to help the people making $5 million a year. But both of them were able to help each other, and both of them were able to grow together as we share that stuff. So that's my last piece of and challenge to you. So the 3 things we covered today. And if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. I'd love to answer any questions you have on this 4x4 rule. But as you're deciding what's next for you, I don't want you to ever show up to one of these things and not get a solid takeaway. Like this is the action item that I'm going to do because action produces results, right? So the first one is do the math and believe that your goal is possible. Whether it's 10,000 a week, 20,000 a week, 5,000 a week, I actually don't care. I just want you to do the math and know that it's possible. Then second, I want you to know how many clients is it going to take for you to hit that goal. So do the math again and know how many clients it is. And it is probably significantly less than what you thought. And with that knowledge, I want you to know that you can do it. You don't have to compete against the big fish to get those clients. In fact, don't even try. Focus on just who's your ideal client, what problem do they have, and how can you solve it? And then relay that message with as many people as you can and refine that message as you talk to people. That's all it's going to take for you to get the clients that you need to set this foundational income. And then lastly, don't do it alone. Get some help. If it's me, great. If it's your mentor in town, great. If it's other attorneys and you find a mastermind group, great. Do whatever it is, but get some help. Don't do it alone. So if you can do those 3 things and you can set some time on your calendar this week to decide how you're going to do that, guarantee you're going to see some huge progress towards your goals. Now, last parting gift, Alina has been working tirelessly in the background to make sure that we could get this resource to you. But I have a how to create your ideal calendar. And we were saying, how can we make sure people are able to use what we taught today? And that was the resource that came to my mind. I was like, you know what? Like, it all starts with managing your calendar and managing when you're working on the business versus when you're working in the business. So she has worked tirelessly to get that set up so that we could get that to you today. And I believe, cross our fingers, that that's set up and ready to go. So if you're interested in that, let us know. So I do want you to have at least engaged with this a little bit, right? So if you leave a comment or you like this post, if you say something, we're going to send that to you.